Okay, so, oh gosh. Whew. So, the kids almost crashed on their bikes riding in the back. Um, this is very important, what I'm about to talk to you about in reference to voting this year. All right, so you know how we have this budget that the Republicans and Democrats are voting on tonight, and it either can pass or not pass, and then they do some more voting. But here's the thing: I really would like all of you people to understand, black women, that despite whatever your affiliations are and all this type of stuff and what you believe about voting and your loyalties to voting, you really should consider trying to put every single Democrat in a Republican seat that you can, because the things that they have proposed in this budget to try to come after poor people is ridiculous. Um, we all know that we have a whole bunch of old people now, and this happens like every 20 years because people get old. They age every year. So 10 years ago, people were 40 years old. Now, this 10 years that has passed, people are turning 50, heading towards 60. So in knowing that, these Republicans have put into the budget, and I really don't know what's going to happen, but they put into the budget for the changes to come for people to receive social services and services to help them, period, like food stamps, for the age limit to go from 50 to 54, so that anybody that is retired and receiving food stamps, or who is not quite retired, still working, and they might need a little assistance because their money doesn't cut it and the food stamps help, they want them to be subject to those work requirement programs and have restrictions put on them simply because they need food stamps. So when you think about all these cuts that they're doing to Medicaid, food stamps, vouchers, every housing, everything that poor people need, because this country is not based off of democracy, is based off of like kind of a weird ass oligarchy that's heading towards fascism, right? Um, it's kind of crazy because you're punishing people for being poor, and poor people who have like a lot of black women, especially these divestors and others like that, who have hatred towards black women and other people. They are misdirecting black women to vote towards the very Republicans who are trying to take all of your rights away, and to try to further take now resources, your right to work, your right to have the government help you with housing or provide housing, right? Because none of us own construction companies where we could just go create a couple of apartment buildings or whatever it is for people to live in. So we need the government to help individuals and companies out with that. So they're trying to take that away. So when you talk about these cuts that they're going to be doing to the money that poor people receive, you have to also factor in inflation. And when you factor in inflation, the cuts are so bad that even though you're going to hear them say that they're going to cap the money at a certain amount, and it should stand still for a number of years, maybe like 2 years or so, that really means that you're going to suffer more of a cut than you normally would, because it's not like inflation is going to stay steady. The more things cost and they rise in cost and your money stays the same or is capped at a certain amount, you're going to receive less and you're going to get less. So it's kind of like really, really hurting us. But there is a way out of this shit. And it's quite simple. It's like I said, the way that you turn everything around in this country is by voting. Please understand that. Please don't let anybody tell you that your vote doesn't count and that Democrats are soft and the reason everything is messed up is because of Democrats. That's not true. It's very much quite the opposite, because if you actually look at how each and every individual representative voted for every bill, you will seriously see that everything that sadly and wrongfully affected the everyday working American citizen was taken away or voted against for by Republicans. When you think about the state of Florida, who's doing all that? Is that not a Republican governor? Or is that the fairy godmother? Like, you got to be realistic with stuff. It's not about, oh, you just don't like this person or you're just making this up. It's the reality. So in order for you to actually set this right, it's real simple. Every open available seat, every person that's seeking re-election that's a Republican, give it to a Democrat. Because these Republicans, and I know a lot of you are not aware of what I'm about to say because you're young, and probably older people like me haven't told you, but these Republicans are trying to take this country back to Reaganomics. And Reaganomics was in the 80s. It was a period when the disparity of wealth in this country was so painfully obvious that rich people literally lived on one side of the town and poor people lived on the other side because no one could afford to actually move, or they couldn't afford to do anything. They couldn't afford to move out of their bad situations. They couldn't afford to educate themselves out of a bad situation. And if you want to really fully understand, all you got to do is type in 1980s Reaganomics and look at all of the policies, look at all the things that he did to take all the money away from every single person in America and only give the money to white people. This is what Reaganomics did. And this is what these Republicans are trying to do right now. In the 1980s, let me tell you, before Reagan became president and before he did all of those drastic, horrible things he did to everything that affects your everyday life, because he was the worst president ever, right? You had people come to this country from nowhere. You had everyday people in your neighborhood able to open up mom and pop stores. I'm telling you, think about what I'm saying, and I'm not bullshitting. This was back when Selena was still alive. Y'all remember Selena, the Tejano singer? You know, I'm dreaming. Remember her? She was still alive. She hadn't been tragically taken away from us by that lunatic. But her parents were able to start a business, open up a restaurant, buy a house, do plenty of things. And they were, in Corpus Christi? And her parents literally came from Mexico. Listen, you had Donna Summers at the same time who had just started up her career. Well, not just started it up. Well, she was in the middle of her career. And she started taking off a lot more seriously than she had been before. And this is the beginning of the 80s, right? So you had all this growth, people exploding because there was a form of real democracy, right? People could put in for grants. They could get business loans. They could get loans from Freddie Mac, Sallie Mae, etc. for housing and buy their first homes. He came along. He saw that even the poorest people in this country could actually take care of themselves, make a living, and were able to start businesses and do something with themselves. They literally were able to, how they say these days, pull themselves up by their bootstraps. They were doing that. He got in office, and I'm telling you, go read the history for yourself, and you could see his doings and his whole entire plan and strategies being re-released and reincorporated today. It's called Reaganomics. He made sure that all of those people who had new businesses lost them. He made sure that they no longer qualify for business loans. They no longer could afford to buy first-time homes. They no longer were able to put their children through college. He even attacked the FAFSA, which is the financial aid for children to go to college straight out of high school. He tried to do everything he could to literally create and expand the income divide, the digital divide, the wealth divide. He tried to make it a tale of two cities. He tried to make this country literally a tale of two cities, rich and poor only, nothing in between. And That's what they're literally trying to do right now. They're supposed to vote on the budget tonight, right? About the debt ceiling. And literally, they're trying to take away everything that you have now. All those services that they gave you to, all the services that they gave you to kind of like survive during COVID and to help supplement your income if it was lacking, put food in your refrigerator if you didn't have it. They're trying to take all that away. All of it. So, if they're successful, you will have the same thing happen again that did happen back then in the 1980s. And it's not going to be pretty, y'all. Y'all remember when crack started? And y'all remember how horrible the poor neighborhoods were and how poor people were living in abandoned buildings and the violence, the crime, the child abuse, the murder. It they're trying to bring all that back. And believe it or not, when you know the history of America, you know that they do that all the time whenever they feel like people of color, non-whites, are making more money or able to catch up with comparative amounts of money that whites make or have, right? So as they're doing this, if you're aware of what they did in the past, you can counteract this shit. And it's real simple. If you know who's making the problem, and we know who it is, you don't put them in office. You vote for anybody else but except for them. You put Democrats in, you put independents in, you put anybody else, even working party, anybody but them. You have to. Because you remember how they were talking about before this election, they wanted the IRS to have more power to go after the rich people who didn't pay their taxes. So let me tell you what the Republicans are doing in that budget. They have wrote into the budget that they don't want that to happen. As a matter of fact, they want all the rich people that get away with not paying their taxes to actually be given credits and tax loopholes so that they could further not pay taxes and get away with that. While they come after people like you and me, because I literally have been audited like 5 times. And then most recently, that study came out where the news found out that they were discriminately auditing black people just to do it. Right? And they were. And I know it happened to me. So this is some of the serious shit that we need to be thinking about, worrying about, and actually dealing with, because all this other stuff that we running around talking about on this platform is not going to help us. And what we really need to do is start motivating each other and pretty much guiding each other to let us know what it is we got to do so that we could keep our head above water. And I'm really telling you, if there are any black women that are running for office wherever you live, and they're running on a Democratic ticket, an independent ticket, please vote for them. Vote for everybody that is not Republican, because if you literally get another Republican president, you're going to really find out how difficult it can be to live in America and be poor beyond the understanding of how poverty can really get in America. You got to remember, these white people are upset. They're upset that the population of people of color are starting to drown them out. They're upset that their women are not as compliant as they need to be so that they can maintain their control, right? They're upset over the liberties that women are taking with their lives. They're upset because they are literally not the grand wizard and master of all people the way that they used to be. And that people are fighting back, people are participating in civil disobedience and etc. That fucks with them. So when they cannot control you through what they feel are reason and logic, they're going to hurt you in ways that they know they can, that you can't fight back against them with, and that is their position in government. They're going to use their power as whatever they are: senator, congressman, governor, lieutenant governor, mayor, who, whatever the fuck, councilman, assemblyman. They're going to use that to cripple you and make your life a living fucking hell, and make it where you can't make ends meet, and that you are literally working yourself to death and you have nothing to show for it. And they're going to come after everybody. It's not just going to be the poor people only getting it the worst. It's going to be the middle class people disappearing into the impoverished people. It's going to be the the upper middle class people disappearing into the impoverished people, because this is what they do. And unless you stand up and you go out and you vote and you let every single Republican know, you have done enough shit in this country. You have caused enough people to lose their lives. You have caused enough people to lose their rights. You have caused enough people to just suffer, that now you are not going to have a job after we vote. And that's literally how you need to fix this. That's the only way you can fix this, because if you do the dumb thing and you go against what I'm telling you because you feel like, oh, this is a black person talking and black people are lazy, they just want shit for free. If you really have that type of stupid fucking mindset, go on and vote the way you want to vote. And when they dig into your ass, you will be fucking sorry. The same way the Hispanic people in Florida voted for these white racist motherfuckers, this white DeSantis dude, and they thought that because he was so anti-black and hated black people and talking all this, what he's going to do to black people because we commit crime. Now imagine that. These motherfuckers came here and stole an entire fucking country, and they constantly do deplorable, dehumanizing shit to the very same Hispanic immigrants that come to this country. And you still believe that these people are on your side. And you vote these assholes into office thinking that they're going to do stuff to black people and put you above black people, because you feel like as long as you're above a black person, you got it. You're the new American, the model minority, right? Or the good citizen, the good immigrant. You're a fucking fool. You really are. Because all you got to do is look at these people's history and see. The only way they maintain control is by keeping everybody else poor. So if you geniuses would wake up and understand that once you take them out of their positions of power, other people who have common sense and who actually would look out for the common good for all of us, this country would be better. My asthma is really kicking my ass with this high pollen count. So you really got to get out. You really got to let everybody that you know who's able to vote, tell them to go out and like literally wage a poverty war against these fucking people that have and want to continue to keep you as a have-not. Take their jobs from them. Give their jobs to decent people that want to make sure that everybody could eat. Everyone could feed their families. Everyone can afford to buy their first home. Everyone can afford to put their kids through whatever school or college they want to send them, whatever extracurricular activities they want to put them in. Put those people in office who respect everybody and who are only not just worrying about how good white people live, but they want to make sure everybody lives good, including us black folks that y'all all are so fucking anti-black about. See, because what you don't understand in this country is, depending on how these white people treat us, whether it's really good or really bad, will determine how fucked up you live. You better believe that. Because the people that are in the government and who run this country, they do not care about you the way you think. If you're not one of them, you're one of us to them. So If you really understood that shit, you would make sure they was doing right by us. Because if they do right by us, because we're, in your mind, considered the lowest out of everybody in America, you would be good too. But as long as you got all that ignorant, stupidly blind hatred towards black people, you're going to keep fucking yourself in this country. And you're going to soon find out that regardless of how much you think they hate us and want to do the worst to us, you're going to find that you will always suffer more than we will. Because they can't never get rid of us. And they can't never do anything to us. Because regardless of how they feel about us, they still have an obligation to us, and they fucking know it. Okay? The thing that keeps black people in the position they're in is the mentality of the minority of us that continue to live like fucking idiots when they can live better. Like if every single mother household threw out the dysfunctional black male and lived and created an environment where they stressed education, stressed black excellence, and making sure that those children understood their responsibility to themselves and to their communities, we could go back to what we used to be. And this is why knowing your history is so very important. Because if you get rid of the pedophiles, you get rid of the drug users, you get rid of the alcoholics, the woman abusers, and the dysfunctional fathers altogether with all of that misogyny and shit, you would be able to raise little boys and little girls who respect each other as equal standing human beings. Both of them would learn to respect and appreciate education, and you wouldn't have all the dysfunction you have now. But as long as you keep up participating in all these dysfunctional things that go on in our communities, you're going to keep having all of these type of stupid situations that we live in voluntarily. And black women, you know exactly what I mean. Black women, you can do bad all by yourself. You don't need those idiots to help you. All right? So take the first step. Take the first step and vote this year and every other election and get rid of all these Republicans. Get rid of every single one of them. Create and do something that has never been done before in this country. Actually make this fucking government work for you. And you do that by removing those fucking Republicans, because they only work for themselves. Okay? I gave you plenty to think about. And if you don't believe me and you want to know how this shit is going to go in the long term, how fucked up you really will be, just go onto Google, type in 1980s Reaganomics, cause and effects, okay? And see how that shit played out on all of the poor groups in America. It's not pretty. And do you know it took us 20 years to recover from him? Poor people only. Rich people, they was good from day one. They got better, and as more fucked up as he got as president, the richer they got, the worse we got. So you might want to check out the 1980s Reaganomics, okay? Have a good night.